everyone, my name is Tori, this is Novel Life, and welcome back to my channel. Today I have my September wrap-up to share with you. So September was actually a very interesting reading month, I am not gonna lie. I had some good 5-star reads and some other like 4.5 like really good reads as well. But then I had some like 2.5, 3-star reads. So it's very interesting. It was either really good or not so good for me. I found that actually very interesting because I haven't had a month like that in a while. I'm just very happy that I've had like a couple 5-star reads because in August I didn't have any other than my rereads. But I want to show off this little jacket I have. It's from Hello Lovely, which has the Hello Lovely logo on the sleeve right here, which I really love. And it says rooting for the anti-hero. It's just like a really lightweight zip up because like here where I live, it's like cold in the morning and then like a little bit hot towards the end of the day. So I can just like take this off because I have a tank top underneath. If you don't know this, I actually have a rep code with Hello Lovely. It's just Novel Life. I have one now. I'm very excited. I've been working with Hello Lovely for a little bit and I finally got a code and I'm very excited for that. But with all that being said, you can go check out Hello Lovely stuff. I'll have it linked in the description box below. I'll have my code linked in the description box below as well. But with all that being said, let's just jump into some statistics. So like I said, I had 3 5-star reads, 1 4.5-star read, 4 4-star reads, 1 3.5-star, 4 3 stars, 1 2.5-star, and 1 2-star. When I tell you it was a wide range of ratings this month, it was a hot mess. I did lean into a little bit more spookier stuff because now fall is upon us, which going into October, all I want to read is like the witchy stuff. And the first book that I'm going to talk about in my September wrap-up is the one book that got me started with all of the witchiness, and that is Cackle by Rachel Harrison. So this book is not a romance. I do want to put it out there that this book is not a romance. It's just a fiction book. It's more like women's fiction, I would say. So it's not like a tragic ending or anything like that. I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars. So basically our female character, Sophie, she is going to upstate New York to the super small town. She's moving there and she's leaving Manhattan after a pretty bad breakup. She's just like, I'm done. I'm over it. I need to move on. Let's go do this. So she moves to the super small town and she meets Annie. And Annie is kind of like this celebrity, I guess you can say. She has this very eclectic style and she just is like witchy. It's not a spoiler. It's like you come to find out she actually is a witch. But it's very interesting the way that the author wrote this and like the arc of Sophie and her story and what she goes through. It's kind of a mix of like her getting over an ex, figuring out herself, what she wants for herself, like personally, who she is, what she is, her core values, what she values and all that stuff like that. I just really loved it. It was just a very atmospheric read along with a good like women's fiction story. So if you're looking for something that's not a romance, definitely check out this one. I really loved it. I thought it was an amazing read. I listened to the audiobook and the narrator did a really good job with it. So I would check out this one if you're looking for an atmospheric, spooky read for fall. And if I didn't say this already, I read 16 books this month, which I'm very happy about that. The next book I read was Serpent, Thorn by, I forgot the author, but here's the picture. And I gave this 3 stars. So I think I read this book and a couple other of these books for 24-hour reading vlog, which I'll link in the cards and the description box below for you. I'm starting to do a little bit more vlogs on my channel and not keep them just exclusive to Patreon. I do want to still do them and give you guys the vlogs, even though if you're not a part of my Patreon, which is like totally fine. So yeah, I'm starting to do maybe 1, maybe 2 a month. That's my goal, but I did read this one for a 24-hour reading vlog. I listened to the audio, and while this is a YA fantasy book, it was solid. It was okay. It was average. I think this won like 2020's YA fantasy, some award or something like that. And I could see why. It was very interesting. The world building was very easy to get into. The female character was very strong and independent. She had her good story. So a little bit of a romance. I thought it was still really good. And it was just average. Like everything was just average. So it was hard for me to like give it a higher rating, but it was also hard for me to give it a lower rating. Like when I think a book has a solid plot, like a solid okay plot, solid okay characters, solid okay writing, solid 3 stars. That's my average because it's right in the middle. So that's what that book was. I really don't have that much to say other than that, but it is what it is. The next book I read was A Good Girl by Nikki Sloan. So this is her new release. I got this as a birthday gift from Cheryl. So thank you so much, Cheryl, for sending me the paperback. But I did read the ebook. I really enjoyed this. I gave it 3.5 stars. It is not my favorite in the Nashville Neighborhood series. This is book 5. It's not my favorite, but I did really enjoy this story. I would recommend it to those people who are looking for this. I'm going to my brother's best friend, even though he hasn't seen him in a while, and I want him to teach me everything he knows because he's a playboy about sex, because I want to have those experiences in my own way, and then they start to fall for each other. That is the perfect summary for this book. That is exactly what this book is. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It was a good time. It was spicy. It was fun. They had that tension, and it was also really cool to see some of the other characters from the previous books in this one. So really enjoyed this one. The next book I have is An Earl to Remember by Stacey Reed. I picked up a historical for the first time in probably a year and a half. I was like, you know what? The audio is on Hoopla. I want to read it and I'm going to listen to it. I give this one 3 stars. I feel like I picked the wrong historical to start with, which of course, you know, it's me. Of course, that's just how it goes. The one historical I want to read is the one that wasn't that great. I usually go to Stacey Reed because I know her writing is solid, and this was a solid read. To be honest, I don't remember that much about this book. It was kind of like Girl, Serpent, Thorn, where it was just, I remember being average. The writing is on par with Stacey Reed's other writing. The plot was solid. Okay, the characters were okay. I liked the romance enough to where I gave it 3 stars because I rate things right after I read them. So yeah, I don't really have too much to say other than that. I do know that the first book in the series gets higher ratings, so I may go back and read that one, but I'm in my fall book moment right now, and I think historicals might just have to wait because the first 5-star book I had this month was The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. So I talk about the Dead Romantics a lot. I read the Dead Romantics last year during fall. Absolutely loved it. 4.5-star read. Now, the only thing that wasn't perfect for that book is the beginning was a little slow. This one, we start off with a bang. We just dive in, and the whole book I devoured. I usually don't physically read a lot of books anymore because it's just harder for me to hold in my hands. But I love this book. I devoured it. I read it about 100 pages at a time, and it was just so enjoyable for me. It was so enjoyable. I was emotionally connected to these characters. I thought, how is this supposed to happen? How are these characters supposed to have an HEA? There is an HEA. I thought, oh, I'm so intrigued on their story, what they're doing in their life, this little bit of magical aspect she puts in with this contemporary romance. So the whole premise of this book is our female character, she inherits this apartment in the middle of New York. I think it's Upper Manhattan, maybe, the Upper East Side. It's a very older apartment. She bought it from another person, and her aunt is her travel buddy. Her aunt and her has traveled the world together. They always go on these adventures, and so when she passes away, there's trigger warnings for grief in this book and mentions of suicide, that she is just really heartbroken. So when she inherits this, she has a hard time going back to the apartment because she just remembers all the good times that they had there. So one day when she walks in, she finds this man standing in the kitchen, and the apartment is back to what it was when her aunt was alive. And so for her, she's like, what the heck is going on? So basically she has gone 7 years in the past. So she's now 7 years in the past, and technically she's from 7 years in the future from that man. So it's interesting. You're trying to piece together. It's not mystery. I don't want to say it's mystery. You try to just piece together who is he? Where is he now in the present? Will she ever meet up with him? It was very interesting. I teared up in this book too. The ending really got me, and I loved every page of this book. I cannot wait to see what Ashley Poston does with her next book. I think she did say in an interview or something that all of her books are going to have this little bit of magical element. So the Dead Romantics was one of the characters was a ghost. He dies and turns into a ghost, and that's the romances she has with him. And this one, it's a magical apartment. So very intrigued to see what she's going to do with that. The next 5-star read I had was Heavenly Bodies by Imani Iru. I want to say Iru. I think I'm pronouncing that right. This is a thick chunker fantasy romance. Absolutely adored it. I got the paperback from Sam Reads Little. I read it on Kindle Unlimited. This book is on Kindle Unlimited. The second book is not in Kindle Unlimited, but I do have the paperback. I want to continue. So this is a fantasy romance that I really, really enjoyed. It is very atmospheric. So you're thrown into the beginning. So in the beginning of this book, you're thrown into this world. You see our female character. She is trying to seek refuge at a nearby kingdom. Her kingdom has been taken over by a different kingdom that's a rival, not rival, but they're taking over, and they killed a lot of their people. Her parents pass away and are killed in that raid. And so she is seeking refuge there. She is someone who possesses what they call the 3. Most people have one magical power. She possesses 3. And in this kingdom that she's trying to seek refuge at, the prince, so the king's son, also has 3, the 3 magical powers. And while these powers are different, they are all different, this is very much a fantasy romance in a fantasy world, but it's more witchy. Like, they have fantasy witchy powers, if that makes sense. So I put this in a Instagram post, like, talking about witchy romances. I loved it. I love the romance. This is like a true soulmate epic romance. Like, they to their core are soulmates. And I like that she throws in a little bit of mythology with like the different gods and stuff like that, and who they worship, and each kingdom worships a different god, and they get their powers from a different god. And I found it very interesting, and it was actually very easy to get the hang of and digest the way that she did this. So I thoroughly enjoyed this one, and I cannot wait to dive into the second book in October. That is very high on my TBR. So the next book I read was actually for my Patreon read-along. Every 2 or 3 months, we pick a book series and we do a read-along for. I read The Naked Fisherman by Julianne. I listened to the audiobook and I gave this 2 stars, so I did not continue with the second book. I did not like this book. I don't know if it was the time I picked it up or it was just this particular book by Julianne, because usually I do enjoy Julianne's writing. This one did not work for me. I felt like it was number one, way too long. Number 2, the female character was so annoying. I understand female characters being naive, and maybe I'm just not the person to read those. The Good Girl by Nikki Sloan, she was naive a little bit, but she kind of like grew out of it really quickly. In this case, she doesn't. So I even forgot why the 2 characters are together. Something about her mom moving and she moves with her mom or something like that. This was a rough read for me, I'm not gonna lie, when I listened to the audiobook. But basically, Fisherman, I think is his name. They start having a relationship and all she can think about is sex with him. She's like, oh, I want to keep going. But oh, what does this mean? Oh, why do I feel this way? It was very, very naive for me, and it was not my favorite. Did not get into it. It took when I was done with this book, and I was like, thank God I'm done with this book so I don't have to read it anymore, because I didn't want to DNF it because it was for my patrons. But if I wasn't reading it for like a read along, I would have DNF'd it like 20% in. I just found the female character way too naive for me. That's it. And I didn't feel like the main male character had any redeeming qualities because we only got her point of view. We never got his point of view. So I never felt connected to his point of view, and his story and his character. So overall, like, I really want to give it a 1 star, but 2 stars being generous because it's Julianne and she does write solid. I just didn't like the characters and the plot. The next book I read was Torment by Chloe Walsh. This is the 4th book in the Carter Kids series, and this is the conclusion to Noah and Thorn's story. Thorn is, I forgot her real name. She's the girl from Ireland or whatever. He calls her Thorn. They are married. She is pregnant. And this book I gave 4 stars only because I love the characters. I love the world that she created. It was very rushed. They had a lot of emotional things that happened in this book, and it was extremely rushed, like too rushed for me, where I felt like you could have put the 3rd and 4th book, took out a lot of stuff in the 3rd book and expanded it. Just because I know Binding 13 and Keeping 13 and the Boys of Toman series, I know how she can write something extremely emotional and expand on it. So I know she wrote this before those books, but you can see where she's grown with her writing. So I wish she would have like drawn it out a little bit, not drawn it out in like a bad way, but like give it more time because they have to heal together. There's a lot of things that happen. There's trigger warnings, so check your trigger warnings. But I did enjoy it. We also go back and forth between her best friend's point of view and her point of view because she gets the last 2 books in the series, her story. So it was solid. It was good. It is what it was basically. And then I read Off the Grid by Kate Bromberg. I gave this 4 stars. This is a Formula One romance. So our hero is actually a Formula 2 driver, and he is trying to work his way up to Formula 1, so he's like working hard and pushing hard. You see that his dad was actually a Formula 1 driver as well, and he actually died in an accident while racing, so it's very hard for him. He kind of, him and his mom was put in a bad financial position after his dad died, so he still wanted to do karting and do all this stuff and work to be a Formula 1 driver, but that's expensive when you don't have another parent to help contribute, so it was hard for him. So when he gets the chance to be a Formula 1 driver, he starts having feelings for the daughter of the Formula 1 team that he's driving for. And she is brought back from Italy to England to the team, even though it's all an Italian team. It's basically Ferrari, that's why everything's red. but the base is in England. So she comes from Italy to England, and she has a very hard past with SA. So check your triggers for that. She was sexually assaulted previously, but you kind of figure that out. She gives clues from her point of view, but our hero knows that something's up and he's trying to figure that out too, trying to break down her walls, just trying to like really get to know her. And I really enjoyed this. This is up there with some of Lauren Asher's Formula One series, the Dirty Air series. I love those books. So I'm glad that people are now reading I'm glad people are reading and writing Formula One books, because I think it is a very underrated sports romance subgenre. So I read this on vacation when I went on vacation in September, and I also read The True Love Experiment by Christina Lauren. I haven't read a Christina Lauren since the holidays last year or the year before. So I listened to the audiobook of this and I gave it 3 stars. It was solid. I felt that the beginning was very good. The whole thing is our female character, she's a writer. She goes on this like dating show, and he is actually the director or producer of it. So it's kind of like workplace and stuff like that. But while she's on this dating show trying to date people, she starts following for the producer. It gets very, very, very complicated. He's also a single dad, which is interesting. Well, he shares custody of his daughter, but they're not together. I just thought it was a solid book. That was the premise. The ending, really dope. It would have been a 4-star read. 1, this book is long. 2, the ending, the last 50% kind of dragged on, so I lowered my rating a little bit, but it was a solid read. And then we continued on with the not so great books, and I read A Game of Gods by Scarlett St. Clair. This is the 3rd book in the Game series, Game of blah 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 series. It's basically the Touch of Darkness series, but Hades' point of view. Touch of Darkness series is Persephone's point of view, and I'm always someone who I've been a huge fan of this series. I've loved all the books, but this one, do you see how thick this is? This is like 600 pages. It was entirely too long, and nothing happened in this book. I felt like the plot in this book did not progress at all in 600 pages. We were getting points of view from another character that I did not understand kind of why. I don't know if she's trying to do something with the next, and I think it's the final book in this series. I don't know. I just am kind of confused on the direction she is going now, and that makes me a little sad because I am a fan of that. But the next book I read was almost a 5-star read. This is my 4.5-star read, and that's Bring Me Your Midnight by Rachel Griffin. I have never read anything by Rachel Griffin. I picked this up because it was next to Foxglove at Barnes & Noble, and I love Belladonna. So I was like, okay, if these two are next to each other, maybe they'll give off the same vibe. This was the most witchy romance I have ever read, and I loved it. Okay, so the premise is there is this island where all of these witches live, and they now practice what they call low magic, and then there's high magic, but high magic is forbidden because the mainland is where all the humans live, and they're scared of these witches. So our female character is actually the daughter of one of the coven leaders, or the board leaders, I guess you can say, for the witches, and she is supposed to marry the governor's son of the mainland. So it's kind of like this marriage of like an arranged marriage to kind of like keep the peace between the humans and the witches. And the night of one of the rushes when all the witches go out to the ocean on the opposite side of like where the mainland is. It's on the opposite side, and just let all of their magic out into the ocean to like get rid of any like excess, because they perform like such low magic. It's like, oh, we make candles or tea or perfumes like with our magic and stuff like that, and because they use such low magic, they have to like expend the excess energy, or it just builds up in their body and like they die supposedly. So yeah, she does that one night, and there she meets a boy. That boy has been part of this other coven that practices what they call high magic, and they've been hiding on this island kind of like in this small house that's like warded by magic. And so basically everything that she's been taught since she was young is a lie. And she's discovering all of that, and she's going through this huge journey, all while she's supposed to be marrying the governor's son, all while she's also falling in love with this guy, and I absolutely loved it. I really loved it. The beginning was a little slow, which is why I gave it 4.5 stars. It's rated 5 on Goodreads, but I would highly recommend it if you're looking for a very good witchy romance. While it is more on the YA side, they are very mature. I would say they're probably like 18, 19. That's how I kind of see it, because she just graduated. So yeah, I loved it. It was a very good read. I still think about it sometimes. Now, the next book I read was so freaking fun. It was Killers and Monsters by Cleo Evans. So there was a huge 3-day period at the end of September. I think it was the 20th through the 22nd, where it was Stuff Your Kindle Day. Yeah, Stuff Your Kindle Day. Basically, it was like a 2,400 free books, and this was a free book, and I downloaded it, and I read it, and I I'm like, is this the book that makes me love monster romances? Like, is this the book? Is this it? Like, is this where we're going now? Because this is a dragon shifter. He is a legit dragon. So he's in a human form and he can shift into an actual dragon. Our female character is part of a mafia family. She gets arranged to marry the dragon, the dude, because he's part of a different mafia. So there's that aspect. He puts her in this mansion for like 10 years and he only sees her twice. There, she has her bodyguard that she starts to fall in love with, but he's made a deal with the dragon, her husband, to not touch her. So like she's been like untouched for 10 years and he comes back and is like, maybe I should have a relationship with my wife. Then it turns into a polyamorous relationship, like MMF, MFM, all of it. It was fantastic. I gave it 4 stars. I'm intrigued now. I'm like, I want to read the first book in this series by Cleo Evans. And I think the third book is coming out soon. And that is a sapphic romance with Medusa, which you do see Medusa in this book briefly. Like, it's all these different either myth creatures or goddesses or I'm very intrigued. Very intrigued. Now, the next book I read was the cover to cover book club pick for September, which if you're watching this on Monday, our live show got pushed back a week. So it's actually on Wednesday, October 4th, and we'll be discussing this book. So I'll briefly mention Fall of Ruin and Wrath by JLA. This was her new adult fantasy release in, I think, September. Yeah, September, the middle of September it came out. And I gave this 3 stars. A lot of people critique From Blood and Ash because it is so info dumpy at the beginning. And while this did not have that much info dumpy at the beginning, she kind of like drags it out. You're figuring out this magic system as in the world as she is living. Our female character is living in this world. And then you find out there was, how do I say this? I feel like this book could have been cut in half. And once it's cut in half, I felt like she could have put whatever the next book is going to be with it because I just felt like it was very drawn out for about 75% of the book. And the ending, even though there was a little bit of a plot twist, did not make up for the beginning of the book to me. From Blood and Ash, it did. This one it didn't. So I raised it at 3 stars. It's probably more of like a 3.5, but I'll talk about all of our thoughts in our live show because I'll definitely, I'm sure Sam has some too. So yeah. The next book I read was Forget Me Not by Julie Soto. Loved this book. It was a 5-star read. I read it because my patrons picked it for me to read in September and I devoured this book. I thought, okay, I'm going to get to like 200 pages tonight and then I'll finish it the next day. I read it like basically all in one night. I think I read most of this book. I was on page 70. No, I was on page 50. I got like 50 pages in one day and then I read the rest of the book in one day. I loved it. I loved the romance between the characters. It's a second chance romance. He's a little broody and a little grumpy. A lot of broody, a lot of grumpy. He barely talks to many people. He says very little words. And I think that Julie Soto wrote this like in a way with flashbacks that her point of view is currently the present, his point of view is the past. That's how she wrote it. And I actually found that it made the story better that way, rather than going back and forth between the 2 points of view, the now and the past, and alternating to where you do get his point of view now and her point of view in the past. I think it's interesting the way that she wrote it, and I think it actually made the story what it is. So praise to Julie Soto, all of the praise. I think she did amazing and I loved it. It's a new favorite of mine, 5 stars for that one. And the last book I read in September, I'm filming this a little early. I'm filming on the 29th. I'm not planning to finish anything in the last 2 days because I have Jess at Peace Love Books is coming to visit me, which I'm very excited for, but I did finish the audio of Foxglove. And unfortunately, I'm giving this 3 stars. I loved Belladonna. Loved it. I think that it was a 5-star read last year for me. Fell in love with the story, loving the characters. I thought it was so interesting, so unique. And this one, we get Bliss' point of view and we get Signa. And Bliss is her cousin that she kind of saved from being poisoned by Belladonna. And in this book, we have Fate and Death now. So Death was with Signa in the first book. And then we have this interesting thing with Fate. And at the end of the book, it's definitely clear who is with who. So I will read Wisteria, which is the next book. I'm just a little disappointed that this book was so long, for one, and number 2, I just felt like it was missing something. Like it didn't give me the same feeling as Belladonna did. So I'm a little sad about that, but not every book can be perfect. But I do still enjoy this series and I will definitely still pick up the next book. I just wish this one was just a little bit better. Just a little bit better. Those are all the books that I have read in September. You can let me know in the comments down below what was your favorite read of September, like your top read of September. Drop me this emoji in the comments down below because I could never think of one off the top of my head, but drop this one. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe for more content for me. As always, I hope you're living a novel life, and I will see you in my next one. Bye, guys.